Hello and welcome to Chakra. Now on March the 1st, 2026, in the middle of the massive US-Israeli campaign against Iran, Operation F-Fury, 3 US F-15E Strike Eagles were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses during a wave of Iranian retaliatory missiles and drone attacks. The US CENTCOM confirmed the fratricide. All 6 aircrew were ejected safely. Now this happened during one of the most complex air operations in recent history, involving US carrier strike groups, B-2 bombers, F-35s, Israeli jets, missile barrages, and saturated air defense networks. If even the world's most advanced air forces, operating with sophisticated identification, friend of foe systems, and coalition protocols, can suffer such a breakdown under combat pressure, what does that reveal about the fog of modern war? And what lessons does this hold for India and for every military preparing for high-intensity, multi-domain conflicts? To speak to us and shed light on this issue, we are pleased to bring to you Group Captain Mohanto Pangi. Sir, welcome to Chakra.
Thank you so much. So nice speaking to you.
Our pleasure, sir. So let's just start with what exactly happened here. How did 3 US F-15E Strike Eagles end up being shot down by a Kuwaiti air defense system, which was most likely a Patriot battery? And what exactly happened? What exactly broke down? Was it the identification system? Was it coordination? Or was it a lack of human judgment?
Yeah, it is actually a very valid question in today's scenario of advanced platforms and sensors. However, as has come out in the media, it is reported that 3 of the F-15s have been shot down by blue on blue, what we call fratricide, by friendly fire. So it is quite possible in a very dense platform environment as is existing today, while the US and Israel and the allied forces are attacking, the Iranian forces. So this thousands of platforms, I believe, are operating there, including fighter aircraft, including AEWC, Airborne Early Warning and Control, aerial refuelers, including big bombers, then including drones, high-speed drones, including ballistic missiles. And all sorts of platforms are now densely packed in a very small airspace. So it is quite possible. So what we generally follow, I'll tell you, this system we follow is layered system of defense. So first, the radars with big range, they first identify any aerial threat or any aerial movement that is tracking across the sky in the atmosphere. And having identified it, there is a process of identifying it as to whether it is friendly or it is a hostile track. So initially, all tracks are identified as unknown track. And then when the radar sweeps more and when the speed is deciphered, the direction is updated, then a quick check of the planned, your missions. And if you have civilian routes, those are also compared. Like I believe the airspaces have been closed these days. So after the identified, it is tracked. And then it is confirmed as hostile or friendly. And there is also a system of identification, friend and foe, which you brought out recently. So there is a system of interrogation and transponder. So where friendly systems are known and a particular platform is declared as a friendly system, if the codes match. So we put some 4 or 5 digit codes inside the system, and which are given to us on the ground, and that thereafter in the air the interest. So to do after the threat is identified as hostile. So depending on the distance of the threat, either a long-range missile is given the task of neutralizing it, or then slowly, since it is a layered system of defense, if the threat comes within medium ranges, the medium ranges are given, weapons are given, and then when it comes into very close ranges, even the close-in weapon system or guns are allowed to open fire, and we call it weapons free. Actually, weapons are free to engage the threat. So that is the system. Now, consider thousands of aircraft operating in a dense airspace. Then what happens? So humanly, it is not possible. So computers are brought in. The whole system is integrated. The sensors are integrated. The platforms are integrated. The whole system is integrated. So we call it the integrated command and control system. So which
Yeah.
helps you to quickly identify whether a threat is friendly or hostile. And thereafter the engagement takes place. So what appears now presently is that the Allied forces or the US forces are claiming it is friend on fray. But there is a possibility that they have been shot down by enemy action also. And
Okay.
there is another third aspect that could have happened is technical defects could also have taken place. Some people are saying that it is meteor collisions also likely to have happened in the dense environment. So you can imagine that in that Gulf, where the action is taking place, multiple countries are there, and so many air forces, and
Yeah.
so many platforms and sensors are operating. So under this, anything is possible. Any of the what I covered is possible.
So, see, the density and the fact that it would be a saturated air defense network, I think would be obvious to anyone involved. This would be something that the planners would have already accounted for. So, why is the saturation or scale of the battle space a problem? Or is it a problem of systems failure? Or in general, is it a doctrinal failure? Why does this happen? Is it to counter this? Is it something that should and must be expected in such engagements, considering there were over 1,000 sorties by 6 to 7 different air forces involved in one operation?
So it is failures are possible because there are multiple air forces involved. Now, for
Yeah.
example, the Kuwaiti Air Force or the Saudi Air Force or the Omani
Mhm.
Air Force or the UAE Air Force, are they willing to integrate the systems? Are they ready to expose their inherent systems to some other foreign country? Did this integration take place before they launch operations? There are aircraft carriers involved. There are two aircraft carrier groups involved. So there are aircraft from each of these associated with it. So thus these countries, or have they given this information? Do they want to share what kind of defense system they have? So these are the questions we need to ask. And even in a dense environment with fully automation, also mistakes happen. If you remember, just a few years back, another US aircraft was shot down like this by the own system or Patriot. But then I want to
Uh,
bring out one
it's
aspect.
another F-15.
The,
It was another
yes,
F-15 in
please.
that piece. Yeah. It was an
Yeah,
F-15
yeah,
that was
yeah.
in.
Correct. So I want to bring out another system. The Iranian air defenses consist of the Chinese-made HQ-9B system, where it is the reverse engineered version of the S-300, and
Right.
they seem to have around 30-40 batteries of that. So that has got a range of 250 kilometers to 300 kilometers engagement range, similar to the S-300. The Iranians have also the S-300. Now, if you look at the Kuwaiti airspace, the Kuwaiti airspace is located from, say, anywhere from 50 kilometers to 150 kilometers, well within the engagement range of these surface to air weapons. So, a detailed inquiry will bring it out as to what had happened and how many missiles were engaged. Now, I will bring forward to a very theoretical situation. Let's say a threat is seen approaching towards Kuwait. Let's say towards from direction of Dubai. So that will be initially identified as unknown track, and then the process will go on whether it is hostile and friendly. And let's say today there are drones which are high-speed drones and ballistic missiles which are very high-speed ballistic missiles, and many of them carry the radar cross-section (RCS) or the signature of an aircraft. So gone are the days where drones were very low speeds and loitering at very less speeds. Nowadays they're high speed drones. So mistake could have happened in either way. It could have gone. It may be a blue on blue friendly fire, or it could have been a hostile action from Iranian air defense forces also. So anything could have been possible. But what is good is that all the aircrew have ejected, and what can be seen on the social media videos is that few of the aircrew were women, and
Right.
they were all walking around and they were fit. And it is interesting that I myself have gone through 2 ejections during my tenure in the Indian Air Force.
Right. Sir, I would now take you back to May 2025 when India saw Operation Sindoor. And we did see something of a saturated airspace even then when, thousands of drones were being launched by the enemy into Indian territory. Now, at that point, India had one thing working for it, which was the IACCS, Integrated Air Command and Control System. Uh, would an IACCS in West Asia have prevented the fratricide that has happened recently?
First of all, we assume that it is a fratricide. Yeah, your question is absolutely, your suggestion is absolutely valid. It could have prevented. Automation will take out the human angle for human error. So it will 100% help in India. But see, the IAF during Operation Sindoor, it was slightly different because it involved one Air Force, the Indian Air Force, and we have a very robust integrated air defense system. And like I told you, a layered system of defense. Another interesting factor is that in the during Op Sindoor, none of the aerial platforms crossed the international border because we are firing weapons from standoff ranges. So basically, the war was fought with standoff missiles and standoff drones. So I don't think any of our aircraft, there was a need for them to cross the international border. Whereas in the present situation in the Gulf, multiple sensors and multiple combat platforms are transitioning through each other's territory. Only thing, the Iranian Air Force is not flying too much, but it is definite that they are firing multiple ballistic missiles, multiple cruise missiles, multiple drones, and the air defense system must be used. I don't know how much it is. Later, it may be revealed.
You know, something very interesting you said just a few moments earlier. You talked about how, automated systems will aid or in fact replace human errors, as it were, in making these decisions. Now, considering that, you'll have thousands of aircraft or drones or projectiles coming into an airspace, are we looking at a situation where modern combat has just become too intense and too fast for human interventions, and that automation is the key in the future?
You are very right in pointing this out. See, earlier the situation was where only aircraft are involved. So now this dense environment has been clogged with drones and missiles, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. Now imagine a situation where now the entire conflict from the Ukraine war, what is going on between Hamas, Israel, and the Iranian, and the present war that is going on. You can see that it is the battleground is full of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones, and they outnumber aircraft. So earlier system where automation would have helped, now definitely automation is required. Now can you imagine putting an IFF system in a ballistic missile, or a IFF system in a cruise missile, or a IFF system in a drone? So it will make the drone very expensive and heavier, and the ballistic missiles also. So these kind of issues need to look into, and the way the trend is going forward, more and more these cruise missiles and ballistic missiles and drones will be used. And this concept of warfare is changing. You can see that the way the wars are being fought is changing. Boots on the ground, you may not see in any future conflict actually. And all this, how many more sensors will come up? We don't know. And what kind of concepts will come up? So earlier concept, now you can see are redundant. And earlier our leadership and military leadership understands it and changes and adopts the system to more automation, and how to integrate ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones into the integrated air defense system. That must be studied, and a lot of research needs to be done on this subject.
I completely agree. I mean, just take the Air Force in particular. When we looked at the dawn of aerial warfare, you had pilots going up into the air in their aircraft virtually as knights in shining armor, taking on the adversary one-on-one. That used to be how aerial warfare was defined in its earliest days, in World War I and World War II. Now we're seeing a situation where there will be unmanned aerial systems aiding in aircraft, right? And you are seeing much the same on the ground, where you have unmanned ground vehicles as well. But coming back to the complexity of operations in such target-rich environments, and environments which are just saturated with also air defenses, what lessons does this operation in West Asia hold for the IAF and India in general as it looks to the future, where, as one of the most responsible powers in the Indian Ocean region, India intends and is developing the ability to play a more important role. What are the lessons that India should draw from this event in West Asia?
Very interesting question coming. Let me give you a few anecdotes before that. Actually, I was one of the first pioneer pilot of a Sukhoi who intercepted a drone. Because earlier what happened, the whole system of drones were so slow moving. Helicopters and drones were very difficult to identify and track and fire, engage in a air-to-air scenario. But so I did this trial, and maybe I can say this with confidence that I was one of the first one that we intercepted a drone, a slow-moving drone over the skies of Rajasthan, and we found a weapon solution. And then I also was involved in one operation in Punjab. This is somewhere during Parakram days when, both sides were trying to shoot down each other's UAVs. I will not name them and I will not blame the sector, but one of the UAVs was shot down. And we heard this call of, we call it VIC-2 or Fox-2. And one of the UAVs shot down. So these are the initial stages where UAVs were getting engaged. And it was a challenge for a very superior multi-mode radar to actually detect a slow-moving platform like a UAV or a helicopters. Now, coming to this question, it is very interesting, the force structuring required. Now, recently, we have ordered a lot of Rafales, and we are waiting for more Tejas to come in. Do you need a rethink? Should we go for more drones, high-speed drones, more ballistic missiles, more surface-to-air systems like the S-300, S-400, and S-500 is now also coming up. Just yesterday, I heard this that India is going to acquire a few more S-400s. So now the time has come to think about all this. Should we go for more fighter aircraft and more fixed-wing aircraft and rotary-wing aircraft, or should we go for more? The way this war is developing, so very interesting times we are living in as far as warfare is concerned. And future war, which direction it is going, a think tank, and actually experts from all fields need to come in and study this aspect. And this question that you have brought up, very interesting. And of course, sensor automation is 100% required and multi-domain. That means Army has to be involved, the Coast Guard, the Navy, the BSF nowadays, air wings, all those who are having air wings and carrying air defense weapons, they need to be integrated. So it is a multi-mode task, and towards this, actually, the joint theater concept that is coming up, so that should come in place so that these things are put in place. Because now there is all our national assets. We cannot say this is an Air Force asset, this is Army asset, or this is a Navy asset. So a rethink requires at the national leadership level. I think a think tank, a study group like yours, somebody can take this initiative and bring up to find an alternative solution, because it is becoming more and more complicated nowadays. And this debate will keep continuing, whether we need more Rafales, more Tejas, or do we need more BrahMos, or more scalp missiles or hammer missiles? These are the questions we need to be asking.
So interesting times ahead, and a lot of debate, a lot of rethinking, and I argue reimagining will be required in the coming days. Thank you so much for your time, Captain Banging. It was wonderful listening to you, and I hope to carry on many such conversations in the future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm speaking to you from Pasighat in Arunachal Pradesh. So nice to connect.
It's our pleasure, sir. It's always a pleasure.